There's some days things don't work out and I kick myself all day. My wife's going, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, don't worry. So I go back to the drawing board and I do it again. And that's the passion in me to do it.
This is the Australian Butchers Guild podcast, brought to you by Meat and Livestock Australia, the podcast for passionate butchers.
G'day meat lovers and welcome to the first episode for 2023 for the Australian Butchers Guild podcast. I'm your host Doug Piper. I hope you've all traded well over the festive season and managed to get a day or two off to recharge those batteries, and you've cleared out your fridges of hams, turkeys and pork because you're going to need to make plenty of room for Australian lamb. That's right, Summer Lamb campaign kicks off on January 5th, which is today. So make sure you get hold of your wholesalers and load up on lamb because those shoppers are going to be coming in and looking to buy some. So here's Brett Thomas to let you know a little bit more about the Summer Lamb campaign.
Thanks, Doug. Now that the Christmas rush is over and summer is here, don't forget to get behind Meat and Livestock Australia's Summer Lamb campaign. Over the past decade, shoppers have been inspired to purchase lamb from their butchers throughout summer to buy lamb for their summer meals. MLA's greatly anticipated Summer Lamb campaign launches today, January 5, featuring the Australian Lambassador Sam Kekovich. Sam will be urging Australians to fill their fridges full of Aussie lamb for those weekday and weekend summer meals. Make sure you have plenty of Aussie lamb chops, burgers, sausages and roasts available to keep your customers coming back for more. Now, if you're after some inspiration for a couple of new value-added ideas, the Australian Butchers Guild will be posting some great summer lamb products for you to make for your customers in the Australian Butchers Guild Facebook and Instagram social pages over the next few weeks. And if you're after the full recipes, go to the Australian Butchers Guild website value add section. ABG members will need to keep an eye on your email inbox for the new Butchers Paper e-magazine over the next month. The Butchers Paper is your link to industry news, views, stories, and what's trending in the meat industry with links to innovative products and cuts of beef and lamb to help inspire you and your colleagues. If you're a business owner or manager, make sure you share your copy with your employees as there's some great news for all Australian butchers, apprentices and meat workers. And that's all the latest. Back to you, Doug.
Today I'm catching up with a couple of blokes that some of you may well know. First up is Australia's official Lambassador, Sam Kekovich. Sam's going to be featuring in the Summer Lamb campaign again this year and will probably give us some worldly advice about why we should be eating delicious Australian lamb throughout the Aussie summer this year. The other guest is master craftsman and very popular butcher Brett Laws, or better known as Butcher Lawsy from Pride Meats Narellan. But first up, here's Sam. G'day, Sam. How are you today, mate?
Doug, I'm on top of the world, thank you, and a lot better talking to someone of your ilk, mate, my good friend.
No worries, thanks, mate. Always good to have a chat with you. We've bumped into each other a couple of times over the years throughout the lamb campaigns that we've had, but you've always been a great ambassador for Lambassador for lamb and for butchers. The butchers love you, mate. They really love to see you there and listen to what you've got to say and appreciate the assistance you're giving all the lamb farmers out there.
Well, I've got to tell you, I've been implicitly candid with you, Doug. It's been a labour of love. And yes, I am a great fan of the butcher and a great fan of and I am a great Lambassador. Now, that's self-praise, no recommendation. But the stark reality is that one of my favourite meals, regardless of whether I was a Lambassador or not, is in fact lamb. You know, I was spawned, we were raised on the old leg of lamb and 7 veg.
Really?
And the knuckle at the end was one of the great treasure hunts of the world in the Kekovich household.
Yeah.
It was a matter of who opened the oven door first without being spotted. But if you did get spotted, you ran the real risk of losing an arm because that's how highly valued that was, that piece at the end of the leg of lamb. So I'm a farmer's son to boot. So the farming world is very close to me as per se. And, of course, knowing what the farmers have endured over the preceding 10 or 20 years in terms of weather conditions and what they've produced is just an enormous achievement.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, the farmers have done a fantastic job. They've had to be resilient. It's a word that we've become well adjusted to and know all about over the last couple of years, but they've all continued on through thick and thin, and they keep producing to feed the masses. So, Sam, you said you're a fan of the butcher. So do you actually shop at a butcher shop yourself, or do you have your lovely wife?
I do. I'll tell you where the butchers do a great job. In our business, the monopolies of or the duopolies of, almost control business. Woolies and Coles. You walk into a butcher shop, say, in the last 5 years, Doug, as opposed to, say, 15, 20 years ago, where all they produced, really, you look at the shop window, and all it was cuts of meat that they just bought off the truck. But you look at the real good butchers now, the ones that have really, you walk in their shop, my God, it's walking into almost a theme park. The meat, the creativity. We talk about the shawarma burger, my Lebanese mates have made. It's just fantastic stuff. You could almost walk into a butcher now, I could venture to say 10 items without going to the mainstream, like steaks, lambs and whatever, real cuts. That's how creative they've become, and the demands have been there, obviously, but they've really been central in transforming the menus of a lot of the Australian dining tables.
Oh, definitely, mate. Yeah, they certainly have been. Like, there's some butchers out there that'll have 75% of their window will all be value-added beef and lamb or any type of value-add cuts.
The independents are so to be admired in that regard. Their level of creativity, and they've been managed to create a new market. It's almost a niche market. And people, I've watched people ogle when they walk into their shops, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, they're making life easier for mums and dads out there. That's all they're doing. They're just doing their jobs. They're being a pillar of the community. They're supporting the local sporting clubs like the footy clubs or cricket clubs or netball clubs, the local school. They've always done it, and they're still doing it out there. And they're like the farmer. They just get on and do it.
Yeah, no fanfare, bright lights, neon signs. They just, as you rightfully alluded to, roll up their sleeves, and they've got an amazing sense of community. Look, I don't know about you, Doug. I got raised in the country. My lounge room was in the shopping strip, and the butcher was pivotal to that.
Yep.
That's where I had my footy chats. I had my, a couple of quaddies, a punt. He was a central figure to our community, same as the greengrocer, the chemist, the newsagent.
Yep.
We're one big, happy communal family. But the butcher was front and square. I reckon my old man, we sharecrop tobacco at the time and little bits and pieces. I reckon our major account was a butcher. We were in there every second day. And, what we didn't know didn't matter.
Now, mate, summer. What are you going to be doing for summer this year? Like, what's on the menu?
Well, the summer campaign's about to be launched. As you know, we've been on this campaign now for nearly 20 years, Doug. When you consider where it started back in 2005, it was a brainchild of the late David Thomason. You might remember he was the marketing manager of the MLA. At the time I was doing a show called The Fact, and I used to do a minute monologues. And it's straight down the barrel. And David thought he saw something in that may quite conceivably change the topography of the landscape of the advertising industry. And through a bit of wit and erudition and bits and pieces, we managed to do that exactly through his guidance. And it's amazing when you consider way back then, that level of irreverence, satire and tongue-in-cheek that's, the cornerstone of the Australian ethos or the Australian DNA and, freedom of speech. We pushed the boundaries a bit and we eradicated all things un-Australian. But lamb was always pivotal. Lamb was always the one component that was absolutely drove the campaign and the Australian farmer. And even to this day, whilst it's evolved, the campaign has evolved immensely. But the key ingredient's always been that lamb has been represented and stood for is inclusion, regardless of colour, cult or creed. It acts as a wonderful catalyst to bind us and bring us all together as one. And there's nothing more evident than that a good old Aussie Barbie, where we all get together as one and forget our differences and rejoice living in the best country on the planet.
Yeah, well said, mate.
So that message has we've never deviated off that. The manner in which we present it may have had its little ebbs and flows, but predominantly the message has been one of unity, unification, togetherness, and riveting dialogue, good cheer and enjoyment.
So, Sam, what's your favourite lamb cut? What do you really like?
Look, Doug, I'm a carnivore full stop. But my favourite, I've got to say, the old Aussie Barbie, I'm a traditionalist by heart. The old Aussie Barbie and the roast. I love my roast lamb. I love my cutlets. I love my backstrap. Once upon a time, when you talk about lamb, people only thought about a leg of lamb as a roast lamb. There's 17 cuts of lamb you can have now.
Yep.
Every budget can afford, a succulent piece of juicy lamb. But everyone thought, gee, it's only a leg of lamb and cutlets. But the Aussie barbie, what about the sausages that they create now, the butcher?
How good are they?
Mate, you salivate. God, the other night I was masticating on my 16-point rack of lamb and washing it down with a firkin of my favourite red. And I saw a couple of these snags. I whacked about half a dozen of them. You know, the rosemary, the lamb, it's just unbelievable how creative they are. It's a work of art, you know, and you wonder, and everyone wants to put you on a diet. Go and get stuffed.
Mate, we do a one of the industry organisations, the Australian Meat Industry Council. They do a Sausage King.
I know it. I officiated the Sausage King a number of times.
You have you? Yeah. How good are those sausages?
What a dilemma that is. How to pick that one? How do you pick that one?
Mate, there's so many brilliant entries there.
That's what I'm saying. I've been to about half a dozen Sausage Kings.
Yeah, right. Yep.
You know, I've had to make a note, and at the end, I'll be implicitly honest with you. I just tick them all. I don't know where I tick them because they're all great.
Yeah.
And I just knocked them all off. You know, by about 3 o'clock, you know, I need a walking frame to get out of the place.
You and me both, mate. You and me both. Well, mate, what's the word for the butchers? Fill up your fridges, get ready for the customers.
Doug, I'm a champion of as I said, of the people. And my message to all the butchers is very simple. Do what you're doing very well. Roll out that beautiful, succulent meat that you create. But I would urge all the consumers to go to your local butcher, you know, display that level of loyalty because they've always had our backs and always been a very, very central part of our very existence in this country. Butchery to Australia is a part of our DNA. It's terribly, terribly important, and I know how hard they work and their meat is fantastic. So if we get that opportunity to support them, you do so.
Thanks, mate. Well said. Appreciate your time today, Sam. And I hope you have a great summer of lamb, and we'll look forward to seeing the TV ad when it comes out.
Yeah, it'll be coming out very, very shortly, Doug. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And remember, keep eating that lamb, mate. Let me tell you, it'll overcome a lot of the foibles that a lot of people have got, particularly in this troubled world at the moment. But if you consume a bit of lamb, it may well heal a lot of those ills.
Definitely. Well done, mate. Thanks a lot.
See you later, pal.
Well, it's always a great yarn with the great Sam Kekovich and hear how passionate he is to see the Independent Butcher channel continue to grow and all the butchers support the Summer Lamb campaign each year. But now it's time to catch up with today's guest, Brett Laws, a.k.a. Butcher Lawsy. How are you, Brett?
Hey, Doug. How are you, mate?
Always good to catch up with you, mate. I haven't had a great deal to do with you until I think it was late last year when we did a little bit of videoing for Summer Lamb, and you gave us a few products, a few Summer Lamb products for the butchers to try out. So
yes,
we'll talk about that a little bit later. I think very happy with what's happened there. So how'd you go over Chrissy, mate?
Yeah, Christmas was really busy actually. You can never prepare enough for Christmas, but overall it was good. It was good. It was hard, as every Christmas is. It was always good to have a couple of days off after Christmas and to relax with the family.
Yeah, hopefully a lot of the butchers did get a little bit of time off, a day here, or at least a couple of days off in a row to recharge the batteries and get ready for next year or this year.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. No, I always remember back in the day, you'd be stressing out about a couple of months before with you didn't get the ham orders in or whatever. Did you have enough meat there for all the orders for your customers, and then comes to Christmas week, and if you're organised, it just flowed. It just flowed.
Like, that's probably the key, to be organised, to be honest.
I also think, you get to Christmas Eve there and you're locking up, and then you're enjoying a nice quiet ale, and you're going, that wasn't that bad this year. This seemed to get better and better. So the more you do it, the better we get at it. Like, it's like anything, I suppose. But I always remember the last one I had in my shop, and it just sort of went, wow, that was Christmas, and you did more than the year before, which was good.
Yep.
And you had nothing left in the fridge except for some sausage casings and a bit of meat to kick off on the day, but in a couple of days' time when you got back into work. So
yes, true, very true.
So, mate, you've been around for how many years have you been butchering for now?
I've been butchering for 23 years, I think. Yeah,
okay.
Roughly about 23 years. So just about all my life. This is my only job I've ever had.
Yeah.
I was a wash-up boy, and then become apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this is probably the only job I've really had. So Yeah, 23 years I've been butchering.
Still a young fella, mate.
Yes. I don't feel young.
with throughout your career, have you had anybody there that's sort of mentored you, or you've always looked up to go to get into this career, or is it just like a lot of other butchers, we all sort of go, I've got to get out of school, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm better in my hands than I am with my brain, so this is generally the most available profession out there.
Yeah, well, it's probably a couple of things with myself. My dad's a butcher.
Okay.
So I was actually born into a butchery sort of family.
Mm-hmm.
I think to myself, this is probably the only thing I'll probably ever do, because my dad's a butcher, my brother was a butcher, and like every young guy, school comes up and then you're not the best at school, so dad asks, do you want to become a butcher? And seeing my dad doing that every day, I'm like, hell yeah, definitely. My dad was probably my main influence, to be honest. If it wasn't for my dad, I probably wouldn't be a butcher. Waking me up every morning, like the 6 o'clock starts. Brett, get out of bed. Brett, get out of bed. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, Dad, okay. And looking up to him as a dad, as any kid does to their dad, looking up to him, you always want to be like your dad. Darren O'Rourke was a big person for me for the trade. What he done for the trade, what he's still doing for the trade. And I had the privilege of meeting him so many times now. So he's just a top guy, nice guy. Shannon Walker was probably a person for me to encourage me to do what I do, just to take things to the next step. Because everyone has doubts in themselves, going, okay, I can't do this. I can't come up against guys like this. But you need that guy in the background going, you know what, you can do that. Shannon was that sort of person for myself.
Yeah, it's good to have that somebody encouraging you to go ahead and to sort of look outside the square a little bit. I think, especially with where you've been in over the last sort of 2 to 3 years, where you've come from and how you've grown as a butcher. You were an integral part of the team that went over to Sacramento for the World Butchery Challenge.
Yep.
And having those sort of guys there to mentor you, to give you the self-belief, I suppose, in what you can achieve.
Big time, you know what I mean? Like, you couldn't do it without these guys, you know what I mean? Because, like, you're going up against the best in the world, you know what I mean? And everyone has doubts, you know what I mean? You think to yourself, I'm just a butcher. How can I go up against these guys? These guys are sort of next level, you know what I mean? You don't think of yourself that. You think I've got a good opportunity here, but I don't think of myself that I'm at their class. But you have to have that guy behind you, them guys behind you saying, you know what, you are in that class, you know what I mean? So to push forward.
Yeah, Darren's such a level-headed guy, isn't he? I've never ever seen him flustered. I've never seen him not know the right words to use or know what cuts what. He's just such a really peaceful, level-headed bloke and a really great role model for the industry. Coming from where he was as a chef, he's got that background.
Yep.
And to today as a butcher in one of the most prestigious butcher shops in the world, or companies in the world, like Vic's Meats, they've got, I can't say I've seen every butcher shop in the world, but we get so much feedback from people that come from industry that come to Australia, and the first thing they say is, I've got to see the best butcher shop in the world. And you go to Victor Churchill's, and Darren being a previous head butcher, he took it to the next level, I think, and gave the business a lot more inspiration.
Big time. I remember when I was a young guy looking in the magazines and seeing Darren, and I think to myself, how can I be like that guy? How do I even get to that level? How do I sort of talk to this guy? You know what I mean? He's an amazing guy.
Like I said, I've only known you for probably about a year or so now, but you've got a massive social media following there, like probably more than any other butcher that I've ever come across.
Yep.
But how did you embark on that? What made you decide? Did you just fall into that channel? Did you purposely go towards that line to try and promote yourself and the industry at the same time, or is it just something that just sort of happened?
I've always liked taking photos of the products I do. I've always had a passion for doing different products. Even when I was like sort of apprentice, you know what I mean? Like I'd put a window display in and it looks amazing. I'll take a photo. I never done the socials for myself. I always wanted to encourage people to come into the industry, to get people into and to say butchery is an actual art form. It's not just cutting meat, and everything we do is an art form. Like we play with sharp knives every day. We create new products every day, flavors, you know what I mean? Just breaking down beef, lamb and pork is a skill just by itself. So I thought to myself, you know, how can we promote this industry? So I started the socials up in the COVID sort of period, and then all of a sudden people started following me and talking to people all around the world, and started encouraging me to say, yeah, cool. And it just sort of took off from there. I've done a couple of competitions through COVID with Shannon Walker, and I come third in the world. And that sort of took off then with my lamb display. And then sort of last couple of years just sort of taken off, really.
The competition that you're talking about, vaguely remember something about it. It was about doing a lamb or something?
Yeah, it was half a lamb. It was a virtual competition.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to break down a lamb and sort of go into your shop and display what products you want to do and send the photos through. And then photos go to 6 judges around the world, and they sort of judge the products. So, yeah, and I was lucky enough to come third in the world. So
well done.
I was pretty stoked. I was stoked to be it wasn't nothing massive, but it was an encouragement for myself, because I always think, I can't do that. I can't do this. I knew I was good at my trade, but I just didn't think I could do that in that level. And then it just kicked off from there, really.
And then there was meat stock. I think you've done how many meat stock events have you attended?
So meat stocks, I've done 2.
Right.
Sammy and Shannon encouraged me to do some meat stocks to get to the level I wanted to be at. So I drove down to Melbourne, competed against guys like Joel, Gary, come up to them sort of guys. I was shitting myself. Really, I was on stage going, oh, look at these guys. These guys are well respected in the industry, and I'm just coming up. I was lucky enough to come third there, and I was over the moon. And then I went to Sydney Meat Stock, and same again, big crowd, atmosphere was pumping, all that sort of stuff. I was lucky enough to come third again, so it was pretty cool.
It's a great outcome. A couple of thirds. You don't have to win, but it's more about. I think it's about the experience and also getting to network with other butchers that you don't generally know. Like you've got guys down in Victoria, you had Gary from Queensland. I take it, Gary.
Yep.
From the Squealing Pig, and you had Joel Young there. And plus whoever else. And I think they generally get around about 20 entries per meat stock. I think it is, so or roughly around there. So you've got all these guys that you're going to end up knowing, and the best part about it is you look at each other's display at the end of it, and then you go, shit, I could have done that, or that's just looks that little bit better when you maybe tie it that way or use that bit of garnish, and that just gives you all ideas and inspiration for the future of how you're going to take these ideas back to your shop. Yeah,
definitely. And like you said, just then, it's not about winning. We're promoting our industry to show the average person what we do and what products we can do. So it's to try and to show people what butchery is all about.
Like there's a definite thirst for butchers, well, for the meat industry, I suppose, when you're looking at from a customer or a shopper's point of view. Because, I was thinking about it over the weekend. I'm thinking, how can we get more people to go back to the butcher? Really, the only way we can do it is to promote how professional the butcher is. Because I think about it, you go to a supermarket, everyone's dressed in the same gear, they've got a nice, tidy, clean, shirt on, and they're sometimes they're relatively well shaven or tidy. But then you go to a butcher shop, and there's various degrees of, not everybody, but there's some shops, they don't have a uniform. They might wear something a little bit grotty, or they don't change their aprons regularly. And that's a negative for a butcher, for a shopper to walk in there and see that and say, geez, he's a bit dirty, or you've got that, that hypo smell, the chlorine smell, doesn't that smell great? But, that's a bit of an off-putting thing. And it's all these little things that do discourage shoppers from coming back to a butcher, I think. But at the end of the day, you're there to sell meat and to do it professionally and to do it well. And I think that's what we need to do, is need to get that message out there to the customer, to the shopper, to say, hey, we can do anything you want, which you can. Like butchers, you've proved it yourself. You can make so many different products. You can solve so many different meal solutions by having value-added lines in your shop, or even just nicely presented steaks to make them. You make them look great. People want to buy them. because we buy with our eyes, don't we?
Definitely. I mean, that's sort of when I talk to the young guys about doing value added, the first thing I say is has to taste good, and people have to buy. They buy with their eyes.
I noticed there was a couple of products that you made for us the other day, and you used pomegranates as a garnish. One I think was an ingredient, and the other one was a garnish as well. But I'd never thought of using pomegranate before, but the colour made everything pop, didn't it?
Yes, yeah, definitely. And when you bite into a pomegranate, it's like a pop. Like when you put it into a patty, the pop on it, it's amazing. I mean, it's just like, whoa, this is really nice.
When I was talking with Sam Kekovich earlier, he mentioned the shawarma burger, and he's got a recipe for that as well. So
yeah, awesome.
There you go. Yeah, I think he was saying off camera. He said he had a Lebanese neighbour who gave him this recipe.
Yeah,
he calls it his own, as he would.
Yeah, can't wait to try.
You got to own it. You got to own it.
Definitely.
With the World Butchery Challenge, that was a big commitment from you guys, from everybody in the team and the management behind it. So that actually really took up a fair bit of time. How did your current employer sort of embrace that, or what did you have to sort of give up to be able to continue to do that?
So I work for Pride's Meats, and Menno is the owner. So when I come back to him and I said, "Oh, listen, I've been selected to represent Australia," he was over the moon. So he was like, "Whatever you have to do, time off, let me know and we can work around it." So I was lucky in that way. He's been in the industry for so long, and he probably knows the passion I have for the industry. So he was more than welcome to support me. When I got the phone call that I was actually selected to represent Australia, words can't describe it. You know what I mean? Like it was amazing, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine it's something special.
Yes.
With your social media sort of presence there, it's you've got 42,000 followers or something like that.
I think it's 48,000, to be honest.
Oh wow! Yeah, it's been a couple of days since I've looked at it, so you're growing really quick, mate.
Yeah.
48K.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So how long has that taken to get to that sort of level?
Probably 3 years. So when I first started it, you're talking to everyone, getting involved with everything, sort of come up with different ideas, posting them, and once you get past a certain stage in social medias, it just sort of kicks off from there. It's a full-time job. Like I'm waking up every morning messaging guys, saying, writing back to them, and because I don't want to miss anyone out. So if everyone writes to me, they want to know something. So I want to sort of write back to them and say, this is how you do this, or how do I come up with products, and I'm like, like if you got passion for anything, you guys can do it too. So it's not it's not about myself. I'm just a normal butcher too. So
yeah, a time-consuming sort of exercise, but especially getting back to everybody that comments. But how often do you post? Do you post daily, fortnightly, whatever? Or?
When I first started Instagram, I was posting daily to get people involved in what I was doing, and now I probably post twice a week, because you post too much, people sort of get bored of that. Mm-hmm. You have to post at a certain time too. So because this is a worldwide thing too, it's not just Australian. So you have to work out your time difference to what time is good to post. Mm-hmm. So for Australians, it might be 7:30 at night. Everyone's sitting at home.
Okay, yeah, it's interesting. I don't manage our socials for the Australian Butchers Guild. We have a girl, Tamara. She's very good at that, and she's always looking for content and always on my back for content. And she ends up. I've got that many other things to do. I don't always get to that, so she just sort of digs around and she uses other people's content. She has to contact them to make sure that she can use them and all that sort of stuff. But
yeah,
she's very strict on what she puts out and what time it goes out. And I know when we first started, I thought it was great, free for all. I'm on the management side of the thing. I'll throw something out. And next thing I get this great big long-winded email from her, and it's like, oh, geez, I think I just got told off. So yeah, I learnt the hard way.
Yep.
I'm an older butcher, I suppose. I don't have 48,000 followers, but I sort of maybe post. I go through little phases, and I think I'll post one or two one week, and then I might not do anything for about another month or something, or I get bored of it. But it's what feeds people though, isn't it? it's about feeding them information.
100%. And in the industry, you always have to involve, you know what I mean? So changes is always a good thing in the industry. Involve because if you don't involve with the industry, you'll get left behind. And social media these days is it's a weapon, really. I have customers come into work from, they drive all the way out from Sydney. We're about 40 minutes away from Sydney, just to buy value-added products because they've seen it online and they go, okay, cool, I want to try that. So they come over and they message me. And so that's bringing customers into the shop too.
What's the best value-added product you think you've created? What do you think that would be?
I like working with lamb. So lamb value adding, that's really good. I know all butcher shop that I've worked in, we can't sell chum chops. So chum chops are probably the last thing to sell. So I like coming up with something, chum chops like a lamb picanha or lamb corset to show butchers this is what we can do to get rid of this product.
The lamb picanha is one of the recipes that you gave us for the summer lamb campaign. And I had a crack at it on the weekend, but I had it vacked down for a couple of days.
Yep.
And it's just a Moroccan seasoning over some lovely thick lamb chump chops or the boneless lamb rump with the cap still on it.
Yep.
And I tell you what, I loved it. I thought it was just such a simple, easy, tasty sort of dish. But I think the best part about it was I let it sit for a couple of days in a little vac bag, and so the flavour really went through the meat. And I just cooked it on the I cooked it on the barbie, man, and it was so super tender. And
they're so underrated, lamb rumps. That's for sure. Like they're so underrated. Like it's one of the best cuts of lamb. When you cook it right, it's amazing.
And it's well, you know, I do a lot of presentations, and because like we do a beef and lamb innovation workshop where I just do a lamb and refer back to beef with the cuts because they're pretty, they're all the same cuts that come off the same animals. It's just the size that varies, and there's a couple extra ones on the beef.
Yeah.
But I always go back to a rump, and I always sort of like to say how important it is to use this cut as a great example for somebody in the shop that's a customer coming through. And these days, like we're an aging society. You've got a lot of retirees out there, a lot of aged people out there that still want to do a roast, but they don't want a leg of lamb, or they don't want a shoulder. They want something that's bonus. They want something easy to cook.
Yep.
And I always say, a little lamb rump. Two people will generally, when you get to sort of that, retirement age, you don't really need a lot of protein. But if you do one little rump or get two little rumps, you have a little bit of meat left over for sandwiches. It's a no-brainer, isn't it?
It's a perfect roast. That's for sure, you mean? And it's it's to educate our customers too. So that's probably the main thing, to educate people what to buy. Like lamb cutlet's amazing, but why don't we go through a lamb chump? If you cook it this way, it's just as nice, just as tasty.
Definitely. No, it's a good cut. The old, I remember in my shop, people used to buy legs of lamb years ago. They'd buy legs of lamb, and every now and again you get someone come in and want a shoulder, and I used to think to myself, you want a shoulder of lamb? Why? It's all gristly, it's chewy, it's got a lot of bone in it. Buy a leg, it's a lot better, you get a lot more meat. So they'd go away and they'd buy a leg, and they'd come back and go, I want a shoulder, because they're used to cooking shoulders. And then I sort of gave it a crack, and I roasted one up, and I thought, well, now I know what they're talking about. It's such another underrated piece of meat. And there's a butcher shop in Sydney, Hummerston's Meats.
Yep.
They used to do roughly about 80 lambs a week in that shop, and never sold a 4/4 chop unless you asked for it.
It was all roast.
They were all shoulders.
That's crazy.
All shoulders, all roasted, all done in a marinade, and they'd vac them down. So you're looking at 160.
That's unbelievable.
Shoulders.
That's crazy.
All sold the same way, yeah. Every week, week in, week out. Old Peter Hummerston.
Yep.
He started that up many years ago, and I think Steve Hack's there at the moment. Mark McKinnon was there as well, but he's retired.
Yep.
He's hung up the boots, and he's now back on the horse somewhere.
Yeah.
But no, they still do it, and it's a great example of how you can make more money at it. And a shoulder, when last time I was in the shop was a while ago, but lambs weren't as expensive as what they are now, but they were getting, I think, $30 for a shoulder back then. But if you do the math and you work out, okay, we get maybe 2.5, 3 kilos of 4/4 chops out, you might be getting $20 a kilo, so there's $60 there, and you've got all that waste involved. Whereas the shoulders, you can do so much more. You keep your shank, obviously. You've got the little shoulder roast for 30, and then you've got the neck. You keep the neck whole and cut that into like ossobuco or something like that.
That's it. Yep. Even the best neck chops.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
they're exactly right. They're coming back too. Like we have.
Are they?
Yes, a lot of customers coming to ask for that. People are sort of. It's sort of it's like that big cycle. Best neck chops, they're amazing.
Yeah, in the winter months, a nice little braise. Throw them in the slow cooker, and doesn't get any better than that.
No, definitely not.
How do you come up with all these different products, mate? Like, you've got quite an arsenal there on your Instagram page, and we've seen in the shops and what you've put out there in competitions. How do you come up with them all?
I used to be good at drawing, and sort of that sort of get your mind going all the time. So I think that way is sort of I come up with products too. I practice a lot too. Like on my days off, Sunday morning, I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning trying to create a product before my family gets up. My wife comes downstairs. The kitchen's a mess. She goes, what the hell's going on here? But I'm up practicing all the time, you know what I mean? So, and passion for what you do is a lot of, like, it's probably the main thing. Like, I want to do this. I want to create different things. Some things don't work out. Don't get wrong. Like, there's some days things don't work out and I kick myself all day. And my wife's going, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, don't worry, this didn't work out. So I go back to the drawing board and I do it again. You know what I mean? So, and that's the passion in me to do it.
Do you look at different sorts of cuts that you're not selling in the shop that you're trying to move? Like, you guys use carcass beef predominantly.
Yep.
In the store that you're in, and obviously a bit of carton meat to top it up. But do you look at the cuts that you're not selling through the shop very regularly, things that need to move on a little bit quicker? Do you try and value add to those so you can utilise in the whole carcass that way?
Yes. Well, that's probably the amazing thing about value adding. So when you have got things that you can't sell over the counter, that's where value added comes into play. So you create a product which is eye-catching, tasty, to sell that piece of meat or piece of that whole product. And I always say to the guys at work, like, value adding, you have to sort of go with the weather. So there's no point making a rib roast on a boiling hot day because everyone wants to slow cook it. So to make that, you know, on a cold day, or like a lamb picanha in the middle of winter. That's more of a summer line. 1 week you might sell so much lamb chumps, so you can't do a value added with the lamb chumps. And the next week you don't sell any lamb chumps or lamb loins, so that's where you do that value added with that sort of product.
What about, like, you know, we one of the big things, I suppose, is butt cuts of beef. So your inside, your outside, and your knuckle there. The things that I hear about is that they're good for mince. Pretty much that's it. I don't know, do you sell many topside roasts? Are there ways that you can? In my day, we used to sell topside roast. Silverside roast was always corned. Very rarely sold a fresh piece. And your knuckle was sold as round steak, but putting you on the spotty, mate. But what can you do with things like that? What sort of products can you come out with to use those cuts?
So topside, what I've been doing lately, and it's working. Because topside we use for mince steak or beef jerky or so. So that's probably really it for topside. So topside actually bakes really nice. So what I've been doing is slicing thin pieces of topside, putting some ingredients in it, rolling it up into sort of little rolls, and then I actually tie that all together and I call it a pull-apart roast. When you cut that and the customer comes and buys it, I think there's nine sort of little round roasts around that. So when they cook it, they slice the strings, and then when they have a dinner party, each person gets a little sort of pull-apart piece. So that's sort of like an outage of topside.
Yeah, right.
Round, there's a lot of things you can do with round. You seam it out, you can roll it out, stuff it with stuff, roll it back up. And silverside, like it's amazing piece of meat to bake. You put some Dijon mustard on it, some capers, a bit of rosemary, garlic, smear that on, and it presents well. It looks amazing in the window.
Yeah, right, okay. A German guy I worked with many years ago, he just used to... He had a salt mix that he used, and there was a lot of salt in it, but there was a couple other little spices. He never used to tell me what he put in it because they were all up in his head, and he didn't want anybody else to know.
Yep.
And he'd just rub it all over this silver, and he'd throw it in the oven. That's just a little oven, and then bake it up. And honestly, I don't know what was in it, it just had the best flavour. It was cooked to perfection. It was medium rare, and I think we used to eat more than we used to sell, like a lot of stuff in that shop. You know, it is just so tasty, but it's just getting that mindset, people's mindset changed to say, you know, Silverside, you know, you mentioned Silverside to most shoppers and they go, oh no, you boil that, or you know, it's corned beef. But no, it's not. It's got to be fresh somewhere on the line. It doesn't come off the animal already corned. So you can actually roast that and give them that different sort of experience with the rub, like what you said, with the mustard or whatever rub.
Definitely, yeah. Well, that's the same as educating your customers too. When we sell that product, we can, as butchers, we should explain that's how we do this, you mean? This is good, you mean? So we educate our customers too.
So what are you going to be doing for, like, you know, we've got summer coming up, so obviously we've got your lamb videos will be out there on our ABG social pages, like Instagram and Facebook. So we've got, I think, 5 recipes there.
So it's the lamb tomahawk, lamb lollipops. We have the butterfly lamb leg, lamb patty.
The shawarma patty, yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. We got a recipe off some guy.
Yeah. And the picanha.
And the picanha, yes. The picanha, yep, the lamb picanha. So that's a good one too.
So that'll be good for butchers to put in their shops to try and give the customers a bit of a head start with the cooking side of it, some different flavours. I really did like the tomahawks.
Yeah.
They had a nice flavour with the lemon on top really cut through that fat and really gives it a nice little flavour, just the lemon zest, that's all it was, but it really served the purpose there. It was good.
Awesome.
Very good.
That's good.
All right, mate. Well, lovely to chat to you again, and I'll look forward to getting out there to the shop one day. It's a bit of a trek from here, but I'll get out there one day. I promise you that, and we'll catch up and look forward to catching you throughout the year, mate.
Definitely, Doug. Yeah, thank you very much for the chat.
No worries, Brett. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Doug. See you, mate.